Hi, my name's Darren. I'm a Christian minister and I am also an ally to the LGBTQ plus community. And I want to tell you why the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis chapter 19 does not condemn homosexuality in any way. We all know something about the story. A group of men who go to visit Sodom, and in the middle of the night, all the men of Sodom go to that house because they want to have sex with those men. And it has led to a sexual congress between two men being known as sodomy. This is completely wrong and a total misunderstanding of what this is about. And you will barely find any reputable biblical scholars who will actually say that this is about homosexuality. In the time in which this was set, in which it happened, hospitality was seen as one of the great virtues. If a stranger was in your city and had nowhere to stay, and you were able to, you would offer them bed and board. You would offer them a meal for the night and somewhere to lay their head. It was seen as absolutely the right thing to do. And it was seen as taboo not to do such a thing. However, in Sodom, that was absolutely not the case. And Lot knew this, which is why you saw him at the beginning of the story, actually at the city gates, waiting for any potential visitors coming in. And he sees these two men and he says, please come in. And they say, no, it's fine. We'll stay at the town square. He says, no, he insists on them coming into his house because he knows what will happen to them otherwise. And despite the late hour, he fixes them a really nice meal, at which point all of the men of Sodom descend upon the house. And yes, they want to have, to put it in a way that is easier to listen to, non-consensual sex with these two visitors. This isn't because they're burning with lust for them. This isn't because all of the men of Sodom are gay. Statistically, that just isn't going to happen. This is because in those days, this was the kind of thing that was used to assert dominance and control over somebody else, to humiliate them, to bring them down a level. And that is what they were doing. They wanted to humiliate the visitors. They wanted to assert their dominance over those visitors. You'll notice later on in the story, Lot horrendously offers up his own two daughters who are both still virgins, and the men do not want that. And the reason why? The two women are not visitors to the city. They lived there and have done for most, if not all, of their life. And therefore, they don't want to assert that dominance. This is not a story about homosexuality. It is a story about extreme inhospitality, about abuse, about wanting to assert dominance over people, about wanting to leave people outside the city gates in want. And that is exactly what Ezekiel talks about in Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 49 and 50, when he says, Sodom's guilt were pride, gluttony, and laziness, while the poor and needy suffered outside her door. So that is what Sodom and Gomorrah are about. And as a 2-for-1, Jude verses 6 and 7 also refers to the sexual perversions of Sodom and Gomorrah. However, we need to look at verse 6 to understand verse 7. In verse 6, Jude talks about angels going outside of their sphere of authority. When we look back earlier in Genesis, we see angels, sons of men, who come down to earth, see human women who decide they want to have sex with them. They want to have children with them. And this is seen as an awful sin. And that is exactly what Jude is talking about in verse 6. And then leads on to with verse 7, because that perversion is the fact that the two visitors to Sodom and Gomorrah were angels. And these men of Sodom did not just want to humiliate and dominate these visitors. They also wanted to do that and have sex with angels, which is an egregious sin. So 2-for-1 there. Neither Genesis chapter 19 nor Jude verses 6 and 7 are condemning homosexuality in any way.